Do not drink that. Ethan Parker barely recognized his own voice as his hand closed around Adrian Cole's wrist, stopping the champagne glass inches from the Alpha CEO's lips. Around them, the Cole Meridian Charity Gala glittered beneath crystal chandeliers while nearly 300 guests talked, laughed, and celebrated as if nothing were wrong. Adrian slowly turned his head. His sharp grey eyes moved from Ethan's hand to Ethan's face. You have 5 seconds to explain why you are touching me. Ethan's heart hammered beneath his server's uniform. Do not talk. Just trust me. Adrian's expression hardened. Ethan leaned closer and lowered his voice. Someone at this table wants you to drink something you should not. 3 hours earlier, Ethan's biggest concern had been getting home before Noah woke up asking for him. At 27, Ethan had learned that being an Omega single father meant measuring life in grocery bills, preschool expenses, and extra shifts. His 5-year-old son needed new glasses, so when the catering company offered Ethan a Saturday night assignment paying nearly double his usual weekend rate, he accepted immediately. The Grand Meridian Ballroom felt like another universe. Executives crossed polished marble floors in tailored suits while waiters carried champagne beneath golden lights. Ethan intended to remain invisible, finish his shift, collect his pay, and return to Noah. Then he noticed the stranger. The man wore the same grey service vest as the rest of the catering staff, but Ethan could not remember seeing him during the mandatory briefing. At first, that meant nothing. Large events were chaotic. Then Ethan watched him approach a champagne station near the West Corridor. The stranger glanced around, removed one glass from a prepared tray, and replaced it with another he had been carrying separately. His movements were calm enough to look ordinary unless someone happened to be watching carefully. Ethan was. The stranger lightly touched the base of the replacement glass, leaving a nearly invisible mark on the condensation. Then he followed the tray with his eyes. Ethan followed it too. It traveled directly toward the center table, where Adrian Cole stood speaking with members of his executive team. Ethan knew Adrian by reputation. At 34, the Alpha CEO controlled one of the largest private business groups in the city. Everything about him suggested discipline, from his perfectly fitted black suit to the quiet authority that made people move aside before he asked. The server placed the marked glass in front of Adrian. Ethan looked back toward the West Corridor. The stranger was watching him now. Their eyes met for one uncomfortable second. Then the man turned and disappeared behind the service doors. Ethan should have called security. He should have found his manager. Instead, Adrian reached for the glass. Ethan moved. He crossed the ballroom between tables, ignoring the confused looks from guests. By the time Adrian raised the champagne, Ethan had reached him. Now, with Adrian staring at him and the entire executive table beginning to notice, Ethan understood how impossible his warning sounded. "Trust me for 10 seconds," Ethan whispered. Adrian studied him, then unexpectedly raised the glass again. Ethan realized what he was doing. Adrian wanted whoever was watching to believe nothing had changed. Ethan stepped forward, caught the edge of the tablecloth with his sleeve, and knocked the glass from Adrian's hand. Crystal struck the marble floor with a sharp crack. Champagne spread across the white tile. Conversations around them stopped. Ethan lowered his eyes and forced himself to look embarrassed. "I am terribly sorry, Mr. Cole." Adrian remained silent for one calculated moment before saying coldly, "Careless." Ethan understood immediately. Adrian believed him enough to play along. As staff hurried toward them, Ethan glanced toward the West Corridor one more time. The mysterious server was gone, but something else had changed. The security camera above the corridor, which had been facing the ballroom earlier that evening, was now pointed directly at the ceiling. For several seconds, the ballroom seemed to hold its breath. Ethan stared at the champagne spreading across the marble while staff members hurried toward the table with towels, but Adrian remained perfectly composed. Only his eyes moved, briefly following Ethan's glance toward the West Corridor, and the camera pointed at the ceiling. "Clean this up," Adrian said, his voice carrying enough irritation to convince everyone nearby that Ethan had simply made an embarrassing mistake. Yes, Mr. Cole. Ethan crouched beside the table, but a tall man in a charcoal suit stepped between him and the broken glass. Ethan recognized Daniel Reed, Adrian's head of security, from the staff briefing. "We will handle it," Daniel said. Adrian adjusted his cuff as though nothing important had happened. "Daniel, make sure this area remains undisturbed." The instruction sounded ordinary, but Daniel immediately understood. Ethan backed away with his empty tray and entered the service corridor. His first instinct was to find the stranger. Instead, he stopped beneath the camera. Earlier, its lens had covered the entire hallway. Now it faced upward at an angle no accidental bump could easily explain. Ethan continued toward the catering station and found his supervisor checking the evening schedule. "Did anyone join the service crew after the briefing?" Ethan asked. A man around 6 feet tall, dark hair, grey vest. His supervisor frowned. "Everyone working this floor checked in before 5. Could somebody have been reassigned from another ballroom?" "Not without appearing on my roster." Ethan felt his stomach tighten. The stranger had known the uniform, the service entrance, the champagne route, and Adrian's exact table. He had also disappeared at precisely the right moment. Ethan pulled out his phone. It was almost 11. A message from his babysitter said Noah had finally fallen asleep after insisting that Ethan still owed him pancakes in the morning. Ethan smiled despite himself and typed that he would be home soon. "Mr. Parker." Daniel's voice behind him erased the brief comfort. Ethan turned. "Mr. Cole would like to speak with you privately." Daniel led him through a restricted hallway into a quiet executive suite overlooking the ballroom. Adrian stood beside the windows with his jacket still buttoned, watching the guests below. On the conference table sat a sealed container holding the recovered glass and a small sample of the spilled champagne. Adrian turned as Ethan entered. "Start from the beginning." Ethan explained everything: the unfamiliar server, the switched glass, the mark on its base, the stranger watching the tray, and the altered camera. Adrian listened without interrupting. When Ethan finished, his expression remained unreadable. "You noticed all of that during a catering shift?" "I noticed things." "Apparently." Ethan crossed his arms. "If you think I invented this, I can leave." "You are not leaving yet." The alpha authority in Adrian's voice irritated Ethan immediately. "My son is waiting for me." Something shifted in Adrian's expression at the word son, but before he could respond, Daniel entered carrying a tablet. "We have the preliminary screening." Adrian looked at him. "And?" Daniel placed the tablet on the table. The drink contained an unidentified compound that was not present in any other champagne sample from the event. "The laboratory is running a full analysis now." Ethan went silent. Adrian's gaze returned to him, sharper than before. "So you were right. I wish I had been wrong." Daniel continued. "There is another problem. The West Corridor camera stopped transmitting for 11 minutes. Ethan shook his head. It did not simply stop. Someone physically changed its angle. Daniel checked the system log. His expression slowly hardened. "That camera mount requires authorized access." Adrian stepped closer. "Whose authorization?" Daniel scrolled through the records, then stopped. For the first time, uncertainty crossed his face. "The system says the camera was accessed with an executive credential." Adrian's voice became very quiet. "Which executive?" Daniel looked directly at him. "You." Adrian did not react immediately. He simply stared at the access record on Daniel's tablet while the distant music from the ballroom continued beneath them. "Run it again," Adrian said. Daniel refreshed the security log. The result remained unchanged. "Your executive credential authenticated at 10:31. The camera returned to its original position 11 minutes later. Adrian reached into his jacket and removed a slim access card. "This has been with me all evening." Daniel examined it. "Then someone may have duplicated your credential." Ethan looked through the glass toward the ballroom below. Hundreds of guests were still smiling beneath the chandeliers, unaware that someone among them might have planned every detail. "Who can duplicate it?" he asked. Daniel hesitated. "Very few people." Adrian turned toward Ethan. "You are asking a great deal of questions for someone who claims he was simply working a catering shift." Ethan stared at him. "I stopped you from drinking that champagne, and somehow I am still the suspicious one. You appeared at exactly the right moment. Because I was paying attention. My security team was also paying attention. Apparently not to the right person." Daniel lowered his gaze, wisely staying out of the exchange. Adrian stepped closer, but Ethan refused to retreat. The Alpha CEO was taller, richer, and accustomed to rooms becoming quiet when he spoke, but Ethan had spent 5 years raising a child alone. Intimidation had stopped being useful a long time ago. "My name is Ethan Parker," he said. "I am 27. I work weekdays in medical billing and take catering shifts when I need extra money. I have a 5-year-old son named Noah waiting at home. I did not come here to become part of your corporate mystery." Adrian studied him. "Why medical billing?" Ethan blinked at the unexpected question. "Because it pays reliably." "And the catering?" "Noah needs new glasses." Something subtle changed in Adrian's expression. Before he could respond, Daniel's tablet chimed again. "I found the authorization history." Adrian turned. "What does it show?" "Your credential was not copied tonight. A duplicate executive profile was created 6 months ago." "Approved by whom?" "The request passed through internal administration, but the final authorization record is encrypted." Adrian's eyes narrowed. "Can you open it?" "Not from this system." Ethan glanced toward the west corridor visible through the suite window. "What about the fake server?" Daniel shook his head. "No matching employee appears on the catering roster, and the camera blind spot covers the only clear route he could have used." "Then he knew exactly when the camera would be unavailable," Ethan said. Adrian looked at him. "Which means this was coordinated." Daniel nodded. "From inside." The room fell silent. Adrian turned toward the ballroom again, but his posture had changed. Until that moment, Ethan had seen a man trying to identify an outside threat. Now Adrian seemed to understand that the danger might belong to his own organization. Ethan checked his phone. 11:23. Another message from the babysitter appeared. Noah was asleep, but she added something strange. When she arrived earlier that evening, one kitchen cabinet had already been open even though Ethan was normally obsessive about closing them because Noah might bump his head. Ethan read the message twice. "What is it?" Adrian asked. Ethan slowly lowered the phone. "Probably nothing." Adrian's expression told him that answer was no longer acceptable. Ethan showed him the message. Daniel immediately asked, "Does anyone connected to Coal Meridian know where you live?" "No." Ethan paused. "The catering company has my address for payroll." Daniel and Adrian exchanged a look. Ethan felt the first real chill of the night. Adrian reached for his phone. "Daniel, check whether anyone accessed the temporary staff records tonight." Daniel began searching. Less than a minute later, his expression changed. "Someone did." Ethan's stomach tightened. "When?" Daniel looked up. 10 minutes after the champagne glass fell. Adrian's eye settled on Ethan with sudden certainty. "You are not going home alone." Adrian's order followed Ethan all the way to the private garage beneath the hotel. "You are not going home alone." Ethan had wanted to argue, but the image of Noah sleeping 12 miles away mattered more than his pride. Daniel arranged for a discreet security vehicle to follow Ethan's car while Adrian remained at the gala long enough to avoid alerting whoever might be watching. By 11:45, Ethan was driving through quiet residential streets, checking his rearview mirror every few seconds for the dark sedan Daniel had assigned behind him. He called his babysitter before reaching. The apartment. Everything okay? Ethan asked. Noah is asleep, she said. And I checked the kitchen again. Nothing is missing. I probably worried you for no reason. You did the right thing telling me. Ethan did not mention the gala. He asked her to stay inside until he arrived. 10 minutes later, he climbed the stairs to his second-floor apartment and found her waiting beside the door. After thanking her and watching her leave safely, Ethan locked the deadbolt and immediately checked Noah's room. His son slept beneath a blue blanket, one hand curled around his favorite stuffed bear. Ethan's shoulders finally relaxed. Then he entered the kitchen. The open cabinet from the babysitter's message was still there. Ethan stared at it. He always closed that cabinet because its corner was exactly at Noah's forehead height. His laptop remained on the counter. His wallet was untouched. Nothing appeared disturbed until he noticed a photograph attached to the refrigerator with one of Noah's alphabet magnets. Ethan stepped closer. The photograph had been taken at the gala less than an hour earlier. It showed Ethan leaning toward Adrian moments before the champagne glass fell. Someone had printed it quickly, found Ethan's address, entered his apartment before the babysitter arrived, and left it where he could not miss it. Ethan turned the photograph over. 5 words had been written across the back. You should have let him drink. Ethan's breathing became shallow. He immediately returned to Noah's bedroom. Noah was still sleeping peacefully. Ethan checked the window, then the closet, then the small nightstand beside the bed. That was when he noticed the empty space. Noah's framed preschool photograph was gone. Ethan reached for his phone and called Daniel. Someone was inside my apartment. Daniel's voice sharpened. Is Noah safe? Yes, but they took his school picture. Ethan heard movement on the other end. Stay inside. Lock everything. We are coming. We? The call ended before Daniel answered. 7 minutes later, a quiet knock sounded at the door. Ethan checked through the peephole and saw Daniel standing in the hallway. Beside him was Adrian. Ethan opened the door. Adrian had removed his tie, but everything else about him remained controlled. His eyes moved immediately across the apartment before settling on Ethan. Show me. Ethan handed him the gala photograph. Adrian read the message on the back, and the calm in his expression changed into something colder. They accessed your employment record at 11:10, Daniel said. Your babysitter arrived at 10:52. Whoever entered this apartment was probably here before she arrived. Ethan looked toward Noah's bedroom. They know what my son looks like. Adrian followed his gaze. For the first time that night, his voice lost its executive distance. Then you are both leaving. Ethan turned toward him. I am not dragging Noah into your world. Ethan, someone already brought my world into yours. The word silenced him. Adrian stepped closer, stopping several feet away. Pack enough for 2 days. Somewhere secure, controlled access, no company directory. Ethan wanted to refuse, but then Noah appeared sleepily in the bedroom doorway, clutching his stuffed bear. Dad. Ethan immediately went to him. I am here, buddy. Noah looked past him toward Adrian. Who is that? Ethan hesitated. Adrian answered quietly. Someone who owes your dad a very big favor. Noah studied him for several seconds. Are you the man Dad helped tonight? Adrian glanced at Ethan. Yes. Noah nodded as if that settled everything. Then you should listen to him. Dad notices things. For the first time, Adrian almost smiled. 20 minutes later, Ethan carried Noah toward the waiting car while Adrian walked beside them. As Daniel locked the apartment behind them, his phone vibrated. He read the security report, then looked directly at Adrian. We decrypted part of the duplicate credential request. Adrian stopped. Who authorized it? Daniel's expression tightened. Victor Hale. Ethan recognized the name immediately. Victor was Cole Meridian's chief financial officer and Adrian's closest advisor. Adrian said nothing for several seconds. Then Daniel added, "There is something else. Victor accessed Ethan Parker's personnel records 7 years ago." Adrian did not speak again until the car had carried them several miles away from Ethan's apartment. Noah slept against Ethan's shoulder in the back seat, his stuffed bear tucked beneath his chin, while city lights passed across the windows. Ethan kept thinking about Daniel's final words. Victor Hale had accessed his personnel records 7 years ago. 7 years earlier, Ethan had never worked for Cole Meridian. That record should not exist, Ethan said quietly. Adrian looked across at him. "I know. Then why would Victor search for me?" "That is what I intend to find out." The safe house was a private brick townhouse on a quiet residential street, deliberately ordinary from the outside. Inside, warm lamps illuminated comfortable furniture, a small kitchen, and family-sized rooms instead of the cold corporate bunker Ethan had imagined. Daniel checked the security system while Ethan carried Noah upstairs. Ethan removed his son's sneakers, pulled a blanket over him, checked the window lock, and left the bedroom door partly open. When he returned downstairs, Adrian was standing in the kitchen making coffee. Ethan stopped. "You know how to use a coffee maker?" Adrian glanced at him. "I survived before becoming a chief executive officer. I assumed somebody handed you coffee before you realized you wanted it." A brief smile touched Adrian's face. It was the first time Ethan had seen him look remotely ordinary. "You have unusual ideas about wealthy people. My experience with billionaires began tonight." Adrian handed him a mug. Not an ideal introduction. Ethan accepted it. Their fingers briefly touched, and both men became quiet for a moment. There was nothing romantic about the situation, yet the simple gesture felt strangely personal after hours of suspicion. Noah appeared at the bottom of the stairs a few minutes later, rubbing his eyes. "Dad, I cannot sleep." Ethan immediately crouched beside him. "New place?" Noah nodded, then looked at Adrian. "Do you live here?" "Noah, then why are you here?" Adrian seemed less prepared for Noah's questions than for any corporate negotiation. "Because your father helped me tonight." Noah considered this. "Dad helps everybody." Ethan smiled. "Not everybody. Mrs. Lawson with groceries. She is 82. The man with the flat tire. That was one time." Noah looked triumphantly at Adrian. "See?" Adrian's expression softened. "I see." Ethan eventually returned Noah to bed, but when he came downstairs again, Adrian was gone from the kitchen. A low voice came from the study. Ethan walked toward it, then stopped before the partially closed door. Adrian was speaking on the phone. Search archived employment records, subsidiaries, contractors, everything from 7 years ago. A pause followed. "No, Victor cannot know we are looking." Ethan was about to step away when Adrian continued. "If Ethan learns why they targeted him before we understand the whole connection, he will take Noah and disappear." Ethan froze. Another pause. "I would probably do the same in his position." Ethan pushed the door open. Adrian turned immediately. "You could have asked me," Ethan said. "Asked you what?" "Whether I plan to disappear." Adrian ended the call. "How much did you hear?" "Enough." Ethan stepped into the study. "You know something about me that I do not." "I know there is a connection." "I do not know what it means yet." "Then tell me the connection." Adrian hesitated. That hesitation was answer enough. Ethan set his coffee on the desk. "You brought my son here because you said you wanted to protect us. Protection does not mean deciding what truth I can handle." Adrian's expression tightened, but before he could answer, his phone vibrated. He looked at the message, and the color seemed to leave his face. Ethan noticed immediately. "What happened?" Adrian slowly turned the screen toward him. Daniel had found an archived personnel file from North Star Clinical Systems, a company acquired by Cole Meridian 8 years earlier. The employee name at the top was Michael Grant. Ethan stopped breathing for a moment. Michael had been his partner before Noah was born, and his death 7 years earlier had changed Ethan's life forever. Beneath Michael's name was an internal compliance request and a short project reference containing only 3 capital letters, MAP. Ethan looked up at Adrian. "Why is Michael in your company records?" Adrian's voice was quiet. "That is what Victor was searching for." Ethan stared at Michael's name until the letters blurred. For 7 years, he had believed Michael's work had been ordinary, predictable, and completely separate from the life Ethan built afterward with Noah. Now a forgotten corporate record connected him directly to Adrian's company and to 3 letters Ethan had never seen before. "Tell me everything," Ethan said. Adrian did not argue this time. He opened Daniel's message and placed the phone on the desk between them. North Star Clinical Systems was acquired by a Cole Meridian subsidiary 8 years ago. Michael worked there as a compliance analyst. Ethan frowned. "He told me he worked in accounting. Compliance can overlap with financial review, but according to this file, Michael requested access to several restricted acquisition records 3 weeks before he died." Ethan felt his chest tighten. "Why?" "The request does not say." Adrian scrolled farther. "It was denied by Victor Hale." Ethan looked up sharply. Victor knew Michael. At minimum, he knew his work. Another message arrived from Daniel. Adrian read it aloud. 2 days after the denial, Michael copied a collection of encrypted files from an internal archive. The system flagged the transfer, but the investigation was closed without explanation. Ethan shook his head. "Michael never gave me any files. Victor may believe otherwise. And that is why he looked up my information 7 years ago." Adrian nodded slowly. "Possibly." Ethan stepped away from the desk. Anger replaced confusion. "So tonight was never just about you." "I do not think it was. Someone interfered with your drink, watched me stop it, searched my address, entered my home, and took Noah's photograph because of something Michael may have discovered 7 years ago." Adrian's silence confirmed it. Ethan turned toward the hallway leading to Noah's room. "I should take him somewhere else." "Where?" "Anywhere that has nothing to do with Cole Meridian. They found your apartment within minutes." Ethan faced him. "And they accessed your security system 6 months ago. Explain why your safe house should make me feel better." Adrian had no immediate answer. That mattered. Ethan expected authority, but Adrian instead lowered his voice. "You are right." Ethan blinked. "What?" "My systems failed tonight. My people may be compromised. I cannot ask you to trust the company simply because my name is on the building." The admission stripped away some of Ethan's anger. Adrian continued. "But I can give you every piece of information I find. No more decisions made for you." Ethan studied him. "Why?" "At first, because you saved my life." Adrian paused. "Now because someone brought your son into this, and I cannot treat that as a corporate problem." Their eyes met across the desk. For the first time, Ethan did not see the untouchable Alpha CEO from the gala. He saw a man discovering that control had limits. Adrian's phone rang. "Daniel." Adrian answered on speaker. "I found another archive," Daniel said. Michael sent one encrypted message before his death. Ethan gripped the edge of the desk. "To who?" Daniel hesitated. "Charles Cole." Adrian went completely still. Ethan knew the name. Adrian's father had founded Cole Meridian and died 4 years earlier. "What did Michael send him?" Ethan asked. "The attachment is corrupted," Daniel replied. But the subject line survived. Adrian looked at Ethan. "What does it say?" Daniel answered slowly. "Map must be stopped." Silence filled the study. Then a soft sound came from the hallway. Ethan turned. Noah stood near the stairs holding his stuffed bear. "Dad, there is a car outside." Adrian immediately crossed to the window but stayed behind the curtain. A dark sedan sat beneath the streetlight across from the townhouse. "How long has it been there?" Ethan asked. Noah rubbed his eyes. "I saw it when I got water." Adrian's phone chimed with another message from Daniel. He read it, and his expression hardened. "Victor's company phone went offline 20 minutes ago." Ethan moved beside Noah and rested a protective hand on his shoulder. Adrian looked from the dark sedan to Ethan. "We leave now." Before anyone moved, the sedan's headlights turned on. It pulled quietly away from the curb. Daniel's voice came through the phone again. "Adrian, I decrypted the authorization record for the duplicate credential." Adrian stared through the curtain. "We already know Victor approved it." "That is not the problem," Daniel said. "Victor did not request the duplicate." A pause followed. The request came from Charles Cole's executive account 2 years after Charles died. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Adrian stared at the phone as if Daniel had just told him the impossible. Charles Cole had been dead for 4 years, yet his executive account had somehow requested a duplicate credential only 2 years ago. Ethan tightened his hand around Noah's shoulder. "Can an account stay active after someone dies?" he asked. "Not that one," Adrian replied. "My father's executive access was supposed to be permanently disabled." Daniel's voice came through the speaker. "Someone restored it, submitted the request, then removed the activity from the standard audit trail. Victor approved the final authorization afterward." Adrian's expression sharpened. "So Victor knew. He knew enough to approve something he should have rejected." Adrian looked toward the street where the dark sedan had disappeared. "Find out who restored Charles Cole's account." "I am working on it." The call ended. Adrian immediately arranged another location using security personnel who had no connection to Victor's department. Ethan packed Noah's things while Adrian personally checked every name involved in the transfer. 25 minutes later, they left through the townhouse garage and drove to a private guest residence outside the city. Dawn had begun turning the horizon pale by the time they arrived. Noah was exhausted. Ethan settled him into an upstairs bedroom, placed his stuffed bear beside him, and waited until his breathing became slow and peaceful. Downstairs, Adrian and Daniel worked at a dining table covered with printed records and isolated laptops. Ethan joined them. "What did you find?" Daniel rotated one screen toward him. Victor supervised several financial departments connected to North Star during the year Michael worked there. He also personally closed the investigation into Michael's copied files. Ethan studied the dates. Then, Victor knew what Michael found. "Probably," Daniel said. Adrian pointed to another record. 3 days ago, an archived Cole Meridian server was restored during a software migration. A damaged directory became readable again. Ethan immediately understood. That is why this started now. Daniel nodded. Someone searching the restored archive would have seen Michael's name and the map reference. Ethan looked toward Adrian. "Victor spent 7 years thinking Michael might have given me something. Then 3 days ago, the archive came back and reminded him that whatever Michael found might still exist." Adrian's phone vibrated. An emergency message from the Cole Meridian board appeared on the screen. Victor had requested a 9 o'clock meeting, claiming Adrian's judgment had become unreliable after the incident at the gala. "He is trying to separate us," Ethan said. Adrian read the notice twice. "Or keep me occupied." A soft chime sounded from the security panel near the kitchen. Daniel stood immediately. "Service in trance." Adrian looked toward the monitor. The screen showed a man wearing a Cole Meridian security jacket holding an electronic credential. "I did not authorize anyone," Daniel said. The man outside spoke through the intercom. "Emergency system inspection. We received an alert from headquarters. Ethan looked at Adrian. Do not open it. Adrian nodded. Daniel remotely denied access, and the visitor walked away without protest. 5 minutes later, the system showed everything normal. Ethan went upstairs to check Noah. The bedroom door was open. The bed was empty. His stuffed bear remained on the pillow. Noah. Ethan checked the bathroom, then the hallway. Noah. Adrian and Daniel rushed upstairs. Daniel opened the security log. A service credential had activated the rear hallway door for 42 seconds during the false inspection. That should have been impossible, he said. Ethan spotted Noah's small tablet glowing on the nightstand. A new message filled the screen. Bring Michael's files to the old Cole Meridian Records facility at 9. Come alone. Ethan's face went pale, but his voice remained steady. They think I have the files. Adrian. Step beside him. You are not going anywhere alone. Ethan looked at the empty bed, then at Michael's old name on the records downstairs. Suddenly, a memory returned from 7 years earlier. 3 days before Michael died, he had handed Ethan a sealed storage box and made him promise never to throw it away. Ethan turned toward Adrian. Maybe they are right. Ethan's memory came back with startling clarity. Michael had placed the storage box in his hands and said it contained papers Noah might need someday. At the time, Ethan had assumed he meant insurance records and family documents. The box is in a storage unit near my apartment, Ethan said. Adrian immediately looked at Daniel. Can we retrieve it without using company security? Yes. Daniel contacted a trusted private investigator who had never worked for Cole Meridian. 40 minutes later, the sealed box arrived at the guest residence. Ethan opened it on the dining table. Inside were tax records, insurance papers, photographs, and old letters. Nothing explained why Victor wanted it. Then Ethan removed the cardboard lining from the bottom. A small flash drive had been taped underneath. Adrian stared at it. Michael wanted you to find that eventually. Or he hoped I never would. Daniel connected the drive to an isolated laptop. Most of its contents were encrypted, but one document opened immediately. It contained only an address, a 9 o'clock time, and 3 letters. MAP Ethan looked at the clock. 8:23. His phone rang from an unknown number. Adrian activated the speaker. Victor Hale's voice came through. Mr. Parker, you have something that belongs to Cole Meridian. Ethan forced himself to remain calm. Let me hear Noah. A pause followed, then Noah's small voice filled the room. Dad. Ethan closed his eyes with relief. I am here, buddy. Are you okay? Yes. I want to come home. You will. I promise. Victor returned to the line. Bring the drive to the old records facility. Come alone. Noah walks to me before you get anything. Another pause. Agreed. The call ended. Adrian immediately said, You are not going alone. Ethan looked at him. Victor expects you at the board meeting. I am not going. Exactly. Ethan finally understood the weakness in Victor's plan. He believes you will choose your company. He built everything around that assumption. Adrian's expression changed. Then we let him keep believing it. Daniel prepared a duplicate drive containing harmless archived files while the real drive remained connected to the isolated laptop. At 8:57, Ethan entered the old Cole Meridian Records facility alone through the front entrance. The building smelled faintly of paper and dust, its long corridors illuminated by cold fluorescent lights. Victor waited inside a conference room. Noah sat several feet away at a table with paper and colored pencils. He looked frightened but unharmed. Ethan's entire world narrowed to his son. Dad! Noah stood. Victor raised one hand. The drive first. Ethan held it where Victor could see it. No. Noah first. That was the agreement. Victor studied him, then nodded toward the boy. Noah hurried across the room. Ethan crouched and wrapped both arms around him. "You are okay," Ethan whispered. "You are okay." Noah held tightly to his father. Ethan stood with Noah beside him and placed the duplicate drive on the conference table. Victor reached toward it. "You made one mistake," Ethan said. Victor paused. "Only one. You thought Adrian would choose Cole Meridian over us." The conference room door opened. Adrian entered beside Daniel and two private security officers, while local authorities waited outside after Daniel had quietly contacted them. Victor's confidence disappeared. Adrian stopped beside Ethan and Noah. "For 12 years, you believed you understood every decision I would make." Victor looked at him. "You are sacrificing your company for an Omega you met last night." Adrian glanced at Ethan. "No. I am finally understanding what is worth protecting." Daniel held up his phone. "Your call with Ethan was recorded. The access records are preserved, and the authorities have the evidence." Victor slowly withdrew his hand from the drive. Then, unexpectedly, he smiled. "You still think this is about me?" Adrian's eyes narrowed. "What does that mean?" Before Victor answered, Daniel's isolated laptop chimed from inside his bag. The real drive had finally completed its decryption process. Daniel opened the screen. Hundreds of archived files appeared beneath a single folder marked MAPU. Ethan stared at it. Victor's smile faded. "Michael should have destroyed that." Adrian looked at him. "What is MAP?" Victor said nothing. Daniel opened the first file. A photograph appeared, dated 7 years earlier. Michael Grant stood inside this same records facility beside Victor Hale. There was a third man with them. Adrian went completely still. Ethan looked from the photograph to Adrian's face. "You know him." Adrian's voice became almost a whisper. "That is my father." Adrian stared at the photograph while Victor was escorted from the room to speak with the waiting authorities. Charles Cole stood beside Michael and Victor in the image, all three facing a wall covered with acquisition records marked with the same 3 letters. MAP. Ethan kept Noah close while Daniel opened the first decrypted document. MAP was an acquisition intelligence program, Daniel said. It identified small medical technology companies before valuable research became public. Adrian's expression hardened. "My father created it." Daniel nodded. According to these records, Charles authorized the original program, but Michael discovered that confidential information was later being used for private financial advantage. He filed concerns internally and requested access to the transaction history. Ethan remembered Michael working late, closing his laptop whenever Ethan entered the room, insisting everything was fine. That was what he was investigating. Daniel opened another file. "Yes." Victor denied Michael access, then quietly monitored him after Michael copied the archive. Adrian looked toward the hallway where Victor had disappeared. But Victor did not create MAP. No, Ethan understood the implication. Victor had protected the secret, manipulated company systems, and tried to recover Michael's files, but the conspiracy had existed before him. Daniel opened Michael's final document. It was addressed to Charles Cole. Michael had written that MAP could no longer be controlled and warned that someone inside the organization had expanded the program beyond its original purpose. Adrian read the message twice. "My father knew." Ethan stepped beside him. "Knowing what he did does not decide what you do next." Adrian looked at Ethan, and for once there was no executive mask between them. "I spent my entire life protecting what he built. Then protect the people his company was supposed to serve instead." Adrian glanced toward Noah, who was quietly drawing at the conference table after being reassured that he was safe. Something settled in Adrian's expression. "Daniel, preserve everything. Independent investigators get the full archive. No internal review. Even if it damages Cole Meridian." Daniel asked, Especially then. By evening, Ethan and Noah were back at the townhouse under security Adrian personally selected outside Victor's chain of command. Noah fell asleep on the couch halfway through an animated movie, his stuffed bear tucked beneath one arm. Ethan stood by the kitchen window while Adrian made coffee. "You still make terrible coffee for a billionaire," Ethan said. Adrian almost smiled. "You drank 2 cups last night." "I was under extreme circumstances." The quiet laughter that followed felt strange after everything they had survived, but it also felt necessary. Adrian stepped beside him. "Victor was right about one thing. Yesterday, I probably would have chosen that board meeting." Ethan looked at him. "And today?" "Today I knew exactly where I needed to be." Adrian extended his hand slowly, giving Ethan every opportunity to move away. Ethan did not. Their fingers met in a simple, quiet gesture that carried more trust than either man was ready to name. Adrian looked toward the sleeping child. "You changed my priorities very quickly, Mr. Parker." "Noah does that to people." Adrian smiled. Then his phone rang. Daniel's name appeared on the screen. Adrian answered on speaker. "There is another file," Daniel said. It was programmed to unlock only after the main map archive was opened. The warmth in the room disappeared. "What is it?" Ethan asked. "An access record." Daniel sent the document. Adrian opened it. On his laptop. Someone had entered the map archive 3 days earlier, precisely when the restored server became readable. The authorization came from Charles Cole's supposedly disabled executive account. Ethan stared at the timestamp. "The same account used to request your duplicate credential." Adrian nodded. Daniel continued. "There is one more detail. The account was accessed again 12 minutes ago." Adrian slowly looked toward Ethan. Noah remained safely asleep behind them. Victor was in custody. Charles had been dead for 4 years. Yet somewhere inside the system, someone was still using the dead founder's identity. Adrian closed the laptop and reached for Ethan's hand again. This time Ethan held on. The secret that brought them together had not ended with Victor, but neither man was facing it alone anymore.